Okay, I'm going to go over the practice test for the test that you took on Friday, November 14th, and hopefully watching someone go through this practice test will help you to correct any mistakes you made on the real test. All right, so number one is a one-step equation. And again, the whole idea behind solving an equation is to isolate the variable, which in this case is n. And whatever I have to do to manipulate the numbers to get everything on the other side of the equal sign, whatever's there is the answer. In this instance, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides because this is a plus 6 and we need to do opposite operations. That becomes a 0. So n is equal to whatever 6 minus 6 is, which happens to be 0. So that would be the answer to that one. Number 2, is 2 plus n equals negative 1. So again, I need to find my variable, and then I have to isolate it. And the way this one's going to work is I'm going to do the opposite of positive 2, which is negative 2 on both sides. This becomes a 0, so it cancels out, disappears, which is what we wanted. N is going to be equal to whatever this is, and this is where a lot of you are still getting hung up on the integer rules. This one is same signs, add and keep. So the answer to this one is negative 3. Same signs, add and keep. Okay, number 3 is negative 17b equals negative 323. So again, we're going to isolate our variable, which in this case is b. Now, this is multiplication. So I have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 17, and b is going to equal whatever this is when I clean it all up. And if memory serves, this ended up being 19, I think. And it's a positive 19 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And if I'm wrong about the 19, I apologize. The important thing is that it's positive. All right, number 4. R minus 18 equals negative 2. All right, so these are still one-step equations. Here's R. I need to isolate it on one side of the equal sign. This is a negative 18, so I'm going to do positive 18 on both sides. This becomes a 0. Now I have to combine these. I have to do the computation. So it's a negative 2 plus 18, or 18 minus 2, either one. And you're going to get 16, positive 16. If you look at it like this one, it's not same signs add and keep, it's different signs subtract. 18 minus 2 is 16. Take the sign of the highest number, then you'll be exact. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, number 5, negative 6a equals 96. This is multiplication, and one thing that came up in our class when we were talking is some students think that maybe you should divide just by a positive 6 because that's a negative 6. And you're used to, with adding and subtracting, changing the sign. But when you're multiplying or dividing, the sign stays with the number. So you're actually going to divide by negative 6. This goes away and becomes a 1, and that's how that cancels out mathematically. And the answer to this is whatever 96 divided by 6 is, which you'd think I could remember, but at the moment I can't. 16. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so negative 16. All right, let's look at number 6. N minus 15 equals negative 18. Oops. Negative 18. All right, so here is my variable. I'm going to do the opposite operation on both sides. So that's going to be plus 1 on both sides because I'm adding or subtracting. This goes away, and n equals negative 17. Because it's not same signs add and keep, it's different signs subtract. So first I have to subtract, I get 17. Take the sign of the highest number, then you'll be exact. So we have to keep track of our integer rules. A lot of you are getting pretty good at doing the actual algebra, but then you're tripping up on the integer rules, and unfortunately then the answer is still wrong. All right, this is our first two-step equation on this, I think. All right, so 150 equals 9x minus 3. All right, when you have a two-step equation, you start the same way by finding your variable because you're going to isolate it. And then a lot of people teach this a lot of different ways. The way I've been kind of talking about it is PEMDAS backwards, and there's one exception to that. So if you're going to do PEMDAS backwards, that means you're going to do the adding and subtracting first, which is this. So I'm going to do plus 3 on both sides. This goes away because it's a 0, and then you bring down everything you've not used yet, or clean up your mess is one way of thinking about it. Okay, then I'm going to locate my variable again and see if it's alone yet, and it's not. So now I'm going to divide because this is multiply. This becomes a 1, and whatever's left over here is the answer, and I can't remember what it is. 17. And it's a positive divided by a positive, so it's just straight 17. And in my class, we watched this guy with a ponytail talk about all this stuff, and he said we should write it like this. I don't know how important it is right now, but I think it will be for inequalities. So that's how you would solve number 7. All right, let's look at number 8. Number 8 is another two-step equation. One minus 8n equals 145. All right, so I'm going to find my variable, and it's n. And this multiplied by negative 8 and this plus 1 are keeping it from being by itself. So I'm going to do PEMDAS backwards, which means I'm going to add and subtract first, which means I'm going to move this 1 first. And I have to do it on both sides. That becomes a 0. I clean up everything I've not used so far. 145 minus 1 is 144. Now, is my n alone yet? Not yet. It's still got a negative 8. I'm multiplied by negative 8, so I've got to divide both sides by negative 8. This goes away, and n now equals whatever 144 divided by 8 is. Oh, didn't want that. 16. And it's a positive divided by a negative, so it's a negative 16. So be sure that you're keeping track of your signs and your integer rules.